G'day, it's Chris. Welcome back to the shed. This is Flattankjourney. It's not a wood turning channel, although I enjoy a bit, and that's a no kit pen that I'm working on in olive wood, and I've just made a mess of it. So I thought I'll sand it back and give it another couple of coats of Danish oil and see how it looks. Moving away from wood lathe because, you know, plenty of places you can see wood turning. I make pens, bowls, knives, cutting knives, cheese knives, that sort of thing. Make a few other things, wooden mallets, and I'll play around with that sort of stuff. But motorbikes is what we're here for. But first, perhaps the elephant in the room, the sound. And a couple of you were really kind to me. I'm sure hundreds of you thought, Jesus mate, your sound's woeful. And I've fought this demon for probably 3 or 4 months, and I think I sorted it out. Fluff. I had some fluff caught in the socket of where my microphone plugs into my phone. So I just shoot with an iPhone 12, which is the phone I use, because the footage is nice quality. The image I get works really well. It's super handy. I put it on a tripod and I move it around. It's in my pocket whenever I want it. So that's easy. I noticed though, when I went to put in the charging plug, it wouldn't charge. And after some little bit of research, a very fine pin, and I scooped out, I don't know, a fair amount of fluff. I think because the receiver for this little microphone plugs into the same socket, I'm not getting a proper connection. And when I go and watch this footage back, I hope it works really well. But I'm really sorry. Thank you for those who've stayed with me. And if you're watching this in sometime in the future and you left because my sound was terrible, well, you know, it is what it is. Probably don't blame you. But I'm going to move on from it. This week, I need to get the Velocette a little more stable. I've hit a plateau with the Beezer and I'm just waiting on the engine. I'm not motivated to do anything. The rally, well, I'm still fighting with the gearbox and I don't really know what I'm doing, and I put it in the too hard basket. So the Velo, I need a rear stand, and I'm going to have a look at that today and see what I can do about it. Should have been more careful with that. Let me clean up the ends. Rightio, got some 9/16 bar. I've just knocked the edges off it, except for that little one, and that'll slow the grinder down. My paranoia for sharp steel, because I've got a big scar on my hand, is not unfounded. I've got some 9/16 bar. I use the side arms. I use 9/16 for that, a little bit more than half, you know. And then I use 1/2 inch across the back, and it gives me something to pound down to mount to the frame. Let's come and have a look at the frame, and I'll tell you why I'm making a Chris Special stand instead of the milled stand like I made for the Beezer. Looking at the bike, I'm going to make, you know, what I'm calling a Chris Special with the U shape in the stand. Why? Because we clear the nut just, and we could have a straight stand, but I've got the brake plate with the casting for the actuating arm, which means when you get to the mounting point for the frame, you can't get past that brake plate. So we need to build in a straight and a U and a round, like we did with some of the others. Now, I don't like it as much as I did the one on the BSA, but you sort of got to do what you got to do, and it is what it is. So, on, get the blowtorch, see what I can do about it. Got the dreaded oxyacetylene torch out. Not sure I'm still good with that. And I've got my bending jig that I weld various pieces of metal to try and, you know, make stuff. Not very articulate this morning. Here's my 9/16 bar, and I've marked off 100mm on the end. And then I'm gonna bend it and see if I can get a curve in it. Well, I can. Why 600mm? Because I need 400mm. So I'm giving myself a little bit of meat to try and get this right. My sparking thing is worn. I'm still not very good at adjusting this torch or using it, and I feel a bit unsafe. So I've picked a point where I'm going to put the mark of the 100mm, and it's right in the middle, and now I'm going to heat it up. And I might need a bit more oxygen. I haven't got the torch turned up very high. I don't have a serious blowtorchy effect going. I've pulled it out of the jig a little bit so the jig doesn't act as a heat sink, so it'll heat a little quicker, but still at a temperature I can control, because you can actually, I call it burn the steel, and it gets too hot and everything happens too quickly for me. So I don't really like that. So if you're looking at me thinking, come on, give it a bit of power, mate, that's what I'm doing. So the last time I made one of these, I didn't heat far enough in front of myself, and it just didn't bend where I wanted it to bend. But it's bending. And it's bending tight, which is what I want. I think this is where I went wrong the last time. I didn't heat far enough in front of myself. And what it does is it pulls the bar backwards and you end up with an odd spot in it. I can see the spot. I'm going to have to stop because my clamp is now in the road. Don't you hate that? Bear with me, I'll move my clamp and we'll get set up again. And I'm a little bit close to the vise. bugger. Clamp's still in the damn road. Not anymore. Right. See, I've ended up with a squarish piece here. Very annoying. Oh. All right, I've turned this around and I'm going to try and heat and pull it back the other way. Now my clamp's in the wrong place. Rightio, I've got something. I'm going to test it on the bike and then I'll come back to you. Rightio, that don't look bad on the bike. You're not going to see from there perhaps, but you get the gist of it. We can cut it off at a length we want and it'll look all right. I'm going to have a crack. Maybe I'll cool this down and then we'll do one side and see if it works out. And then we'll do the other side. Because I haven't cheated this time. I haven't done the other side in front of you. First side. Let's see if it works. Oh, I reckon this is the angle for you to see. So here's the clip and here's the hole in the frame. So I want it to go through about there. So, you know, there's a lot of guesstimation involved and a lot of chance in your hand to see how it goes. I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to get it to loop like that. Actually, I wonder should I do the other side first? Because that's where the problem is. Let's have a look at the other side. Rightio. Should have done this to start with, to see where we were. Oh yeah, that's completely different. So yes, it does clear, but only just. And I would have cut this piece way too short because it actually needs to drop down and swoop under. Yeah, that would have been a problem, wouldn't it? Right, let me get a marker and we'll mark this out. I've been gone for a little bit. I found some 1/2 inch bar and I cut 250 mil of it because that's what I was going to use to go through the rear stand. A little bit loose. Weird. I always thought they were 1/2 inch. Let me try the 9/16. I think 9/16 would be better. You'd have a firm grip and it wouldn't rattle. Let me find some more 9/16 and I'll cut 250 mil of it and then we'll have somewhere to rest it so we know our heights are right. Right, 9/16, roughly in the middle. Now, back to where I wanted to be a few minutes ago. And that is setting this up so that it'll sit on top. That way I know I've got clearance. I know that I'm going to weld it into the side of the bar. And I know that everything has a chance to fit. I don't know, it's going to be close. We'll see what happens. I've got to cut about 1 inch off that, 25 mil. Got to stop talking in imperial. And then I'm going to beat that into submission. More heat this time, quicker. If I get to heat up 30mm at the end of the bar. Rightio, I reckon that's 1/4 of an inch thick. It's got a little twist in it that I'll get out of it, but I want a bit of meat, and I've deliberately beaten it to one side so that I can get a nut and it'll sit flat against the frame and pull straight upwards. There is method to my madness. Let me pop this in the vise and straighten it a little bit while it's still hot. Further in I get to the job, the more nervous I get. I'm going to try and just put a little centre line down it, using the old eagle eye, and then you can see I need the flat at the back, and if I put a hole about there, I'll end up with it sitting on the flat of the frame. I'll have a really wide flat fixing point, and now we just need to work out what that is, or with my proper voice, work out what size that hole is. Looks like 3/8. Let me find a bolt and maybe a tap and a die, and we'll just see. It's going to be super close to 3/8. And at this age of the bike, I can be pretty sure, well, I can be sure it's 3/8. I can be sure it's imperial, and I can be pretty sure that, like everything else on the bike, it's cycle thread. Now, this is a tapered tap. And it is threaded because there's no room behind the frame for a nut. So it's definitely threaded, and I've definitely had that in crooked. And it just doesn't want to cooperate. Okay, weird. Let's try the bottoming tap that we mightn't be able to get in far enough. That's better. So the taper wouldn't go in far enough. To let the thread cut. There we go. That's actually really deep. I suspect that's equally 3/8 deep at least, if not half an inch. And that's because it's in that bottom lug of the frame. There we go, that cycle through's in. All right, I'm going to draw a hole in here, and then we can offer it back up and see how it looks. This could be a quick result. Got a little hole in it. It's not quite in the middle, which is a bit of a bucket, but it is what it is. I grabbed a little spring washer, and I think it needs a spring washer, I'm not sure. Or maybe it needs a flat washer. I don't really know. Because it's got to articulate, it could have a tendency to undo. And I don't want it super tight. But, oh boy. So I've got a problem. It needs angled inwards because, oh no, hang on. God, I'm just going to clear. I'm just going to have enough throw for the brake pedal. It'd actually be better if it was just angled inwards a little bit. Come on, I'll show you what I mean. So down here, the nut on the back of the brake arm is actually now captured between that U shape. I'll bring around this side and you'll see in here, yes, you'd have throw on the brake pedal, but it's only just catching. Actually, be better if I angle the whole thing in. I'll put a bit of heat here, I think, or here, and just tuck it that way. About, I'd say it needs the width of a nut. Bit hard to show you. Let me faff about with it. I now have full movement of the brake pedal without it touching the stand. But what I do have is the stand tucked in too tight at this end. Let me grab a rule and we'll see where we're at. So I've only got about 70 mil to the middle, and I suppose, I don't know that I'd planned 250 mil, but I'd certainly planned more than 140 mil wide for a stand. I think I've made the previous stands about 200 wide and then put feet on them. So this needs angled out at about that point by about 30 mil. Starting to get a bit complicated, but I'm going to have a go at that and see how I go. There we go. I've got center marked and I've got that sitting at exactly 200 mil. And I think that's about right. I've also got clearance backwards, better clearance backwards than I had, and clearance forward. So we can get adjustment on that damn brake arm because we want brakes. And so the stand might just touch at the front, but the pedal would be, you know, on the ground. Ridiculous. So that works really well. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to push on and make the other side. I might do that off camera. It's going to be the same. No point in boring you with that. You know how they say you're only one broken bolt away from a nightmare and a 3-day job? Well, I didn't break a bolt, but I broke a die. A thread cutting die. My only 3/8 cycle thread die. So, in an effort to move on, I made the fixing 5/16. This side. Now, the arm bent up really well. I'm really pleased. No dramas at all. But this hole is not 3/8 on this side. It was flogged out 7/16, or just over 7/16. And I don't know whether it was threaded or just beaten out or what it was. So I took inspiration from the BSA and I tapped this to 1/2 inch. Because 7/16 drill size is about the size for the tapping of 1/2 inch. So I made a bolt with a shoulder. A bit hard to see. And a 1/2 inch thread, shoulders for the stand to sit on, and then I put 5/16 on the outside. Now, you know, the 5/16 is only to hold the nut. Now, it is a pain in the bottom to get in. You have to take the wheel out, or almost out, and then it threads in really well. The thread either in the frame or on the bolt is a little bit crooked. You can probably see that when I'm winding that in. I don't even know that the thread's super in there. It's not super, but anyway, it works. And I was going to do the same for the other side, but there's no room for the nut against the brake drum, so that really didn't work, and my theory fell to pieces. This side though, it does work, and you do end up with a shoulder. And then I did put a flat washer and a spring washer and a nut. And it does hang out a little bit, and I don't really like that. And I've had one go at cutting the threads off and got into it pretty well. And you got to hold that nut as you tighten this nut. Or you got to hold the bolt, sorry, as you tighten this up. And then you get a little bit of pressure on the stand, and you got a little bit of bolt hanging out. Now, this looks really clumsy. I might try and pop the rear wheel back in. There we go. And I'll just tighten that up a little bit. Actually needs a spacer built in for there, I think, because all I'm doing is pulling the wheel really tight, and I don't think it would wheel round all that well. So when I get that wheel rebuilt, and I will, that's what I'm going to do. But there we go. It kind of works. And I kind of have it on the 200mm mark, and I kind of have this one on the 200mm mark, and they kind of work. Kind of. What don't I like about it? I don't like this big ugly piece. I really hate it, actually. But it's the same as the other side, and it needs to be that way to clear the brake arm. Now, Mr. Velocette would have had a more sophisticated solution, and if I can buy a sophisticated solution, like a proper Velo one, I would. In the meantime, this is kind of what Chris can manage in his shed on his own, and that's what I'm going to do. So, it looks okay. I get you off the tripod, have a little wander around, and then I'm going to cut these and cut this, and look at least tacking them together to see if I can get some sort of look at it. I think I'm going to work on some little feet. I think last time I did it, did I weld washers on? Something like that. We're going to work on that. So there you go. Now, elephant in the room again, you can see that big lump down the bottom, and I don't really like it. The BSA stand is so much more attractive, but they need to be the same. So they are. You can see everything gets really busy. You got the mudguard stays, the bolt off the axle, the bolt off the stand, come around the back. I don't hate this. This actually looks in proportion and is reasonably level, considering it's just sitting there. And, you know, the stand clip will move a little bit. But, you know, overall, I could live with that. That would do me. Now, this is the busy side, as you can see. And I've moved the wheel, but we still have clearance down here. And that's important. I can't be fouling the brake rod. So you can see, kind of see why I made that big curve underneath. Now, it looks okay on this side, but a bit butt ugly on the other side. I'm going to cut the rear piece to 200mm, and then I'm going to tack these side arms on and see how I go. More appropriately, these side arms. So, progress has been made on the stand. And, you know, I cut to length and welded on and ground back because I didn't want you to see how badly I welded. And then I welded a couple of washers that are still a little bit warm on his feet. And, you know, overall, I think with a little tidy up and a little bit of film paint, that's going to look pretty good. Actually, I'm really pleased with it. It's the droopy bit down here that I don't like. So I'm happy. Now I need to get it up and put the stop into the stand in the right place. Let's mess around with that. All right, we have a problem. What is the problem? Obviously, Mr. Velocette had a different design because that now hits. So we had a problem that the bolt for the stand obviously had a shape to it. Not the bolt, the bracket was shaped back this way to get everything to hit on the stand. So we had a big issue there that I didn't foresee. So that's going to be a problem. That's as far as it tips. Now I need to decide how am I going to get it to go the rest of the way. That's an issue. I'm going to need to scratch my head for a bit. I'll show you the problem and then I'll scratch my head and think about it. Right, it's got dark so the lights come on the camera. And you see the issue. Here's the issue. Right here. The frame and this collide and it won't let anything go any further. So, obviously Mr. Velocette did his stand different to what Chris has. And a good old faithful Chris stand is not going to work. That's disappointing. I'm going to have to work out something else and work out how these two things can go together and make a stand or start over. That'd be bad. Leave it with me for a bit. We'll see what we can sort out. G'day. Welcome back. It's day 2. This thing whipped me yesterday. Absolutely whipped me. So, you know, a few seconds ago for you, you saw that it didn't fit. And, you know, it was close, but it didn't fit. So, what did I do? I bent the ears of the stand upwards and created a cutout. Now these are actually pretty thin now, and I don't know whether I like them. Actually, I don't know whether I like the whole stand, but I think everything fits. So let's get it off this sketchy piece of wood, and hopefully, well not hopefully, I actually know it fits. Get it onto the bike. This is a bit hard. I'm going to stand in your road. So yesterday I managed to cross thread a bolt. I managed to pull an insert out of the frame. I managed to break a die. I heated, bent and finessed this thing for I'd say 3 hours. It took me to mess around. I was bending it the wrong way, you name it, I did it. Let's do the other side. This side's a bit easier because it's got that BSA wedge tank style fitting. And I actually think that's what I need to do to the other side. So, just a little springy, little flat washer and a nut. Now if I did that to the other side and welded up the mount on the stand and re-drilled the hole, I think I'd get a better result. So here we go. It goes in, and it does go in. That works really well. It's a little bit stiff, mainly because the other side is just a bolt. And then, the best part is that it fits. Then you can remove your giant lump of wood. Well, you hope you can. And it sits on the stand. Now, at this point, the stand will go, and the stand uses itself more or less underneath the frame as its own stop. So I didn't need to weld the stop in. It just took hours. I actually like it when it's like that, but I don't like it when it's clipped up. It just has this giant ear that I don't like. But it kind of is what it is. So, what went well? I welded on feet. I welded the bottom. You can't quite see it, it's out of shot. They look good. And with a bit of a clean up, they'll paint up really well. This mounting point went really well. That was the one that I said was flogged out. Now, in reality, in it, I think it was a small piece of brass, because this is what pulled out of the other side. I wondered whether it was a brass sleeve that had a back on it originally, a shoulder, if you like, and it was pushed into the hole, and then the threading in of a stud for the stand to sit on held that in place. And the back has come off. I'm not sure. I actually think there may be enough room in here to build another one of these, or to put a nut in from the back. I'm not sure. At this point, I can't quite face it. But that's what came out of this side when I was tightening up the bolt. It just pulled straight out. So I tapped a 1/2 inch thread in it and all got too hard. And then made a bolt, and yeah, all of that was good. The good parts is that it's functioning, it's stable, well, stable-ish. Oh no, that's the bike stand moving. It's actually stable. That seat annoys me. It's crooked. And it functions as it should. Let me get it off the stand and I'll show you the bits I don't like. Now here's the first bit I don't like. It actually, all my bending and twisting has led the clip off the stand to pull away a little bit. And the whole thing needs to go forward, you know, maybe 15 mil. How do I get it to go forward? Oh, I don't know. I have no idea, because every time I bend this thing, something else goes wrong. So I don't like that. And, you know, standing here looking at it, I'm probably going to have to do something about it, because it's not the way it's meant to be. And it's pulling on the guard, and it'll pull on the mount, and it's shite. So that doesn't work well. I don't like this. I really don't like that. Now, it has to have something like that, because around this side of the bike, and I'll show you in a second, everything's really busy. And I suppose somehow Mr. Velocette pulled it all in behind the brake arm, and it just worked. Maybe the nut I've got on it is too big. Maybe the brake arm was threaded. Yeah, I don't know. I certainly have clearance now and everything works how it should. So, yeah, that's a good result, but it's still a bit frustrating. The back of the stand looks okay. Come and have a look at the other side. Here's the busy side. Now, there's the pedal pushed down well below the footboard, so you'd never do that, but it's still uninhibited. And here's the pedal pulled up, and it'll go all the way back. So we got good brake travel, and you know, that means a lot because it was one of the issues with the Rally. Now it all looks better here and is probably the way it should be, but the other side I just don't like, but they need to be the same. So I'm happy with this side. It looks really good. The beating I've taken was possibly worth it. I just need now to fix that gap on the stand clip. It would have been simple just to cut the bar out and move the bar, but I weld like a blind man, and that seems like hard work. For now, I'm calling that quits. Well, it's actually only been about an hour. It got the better of me. I just couldn't leave it the way it was, because in the end, I'd be disappointed. So I cut the rail out of the stand and got a new one and welded a new one in. The pull on it was unacceptable on the rear stand clip, just wouldn't have made me happy, and it was never gonna be any good. I decided that cutting it was far easier than trying to bend it to get it to fit. So cutting it out was good. Now it fits, and all in one colour. That's only etch primer, and I threw the etch primer on it to distract my eye from what I call imperfections. In one colour, looks much better. It's not pulling at the stand clip like it was. There's a little gap, which still confuses me. Perhaps I bent the stand clip, but there's no pressure. I've got the rear wheel out, pulled out. So, you know, it looks fabulous. Really happy. Let's get it on its stand. I might have to do that from your side. Sorry about my back. And there we go. I think it's going to settle a little bit. It sits right here onto the frame. So there's the stop. Does the same on the other side. Looks good. Certainly serviceable. And it'll do a good job. Let's have a little walk around. Well, it's actually only been about an hour. It got the better of me. I just couldn't leave it the way it was, because in the end, I'd be disappointed. So I cut the rail out of the stand and got a new one and welded a new one in. The pull on it was unacceptable on the rear stand clip, just wouldn't have made me happy, and it was never gonna be any good. I decided that cutting it was far easier than trying to bend it to get it to fit. So cutting it out was good. Now it fits, and all in one colour. That's only etch primer, and I threw the etch primer on it to distract my eye from what I call imperfections. In one colour, looks much better. It's not pulling at the stand clip like it was. There's a little gap, which still confuses me. Perhaps I bent the stand clip, but there's no pressure. I've got the rear wheel out, pulled out. So, you know, it looks fabulous. Really happy. Let's get it on its stand. I might have to do that from your side. Sorry about my back. And there we go. I think it's going to settle a little bit. It sits right here onto the frame. So there's the stop. Does the same on the other side. Looks good. Certainly serviceable. And it'll do a good job. Go. That flat tank journey's over for another week. Real slugfest. Had a go at it. I've been turning a bit of wood and I pulled apart a regular old 12-cent biro and put it inside a piece of turned olive wood. And now I've got a little biro to play with, and I'll give it away to someone who says, oh, cute biro. And it's good fun, and they cost not a lot to make. The Velocette, well, it looks good. I'm happy. I really am. I probably look like a sad sack at times, because boy, that thing beat me up. The stand looks the same as the Elliott, the Torpedo, and the Rally in reality. It doesn't look as good as the one off the wedge tank, the BSA. So whether or not I keep this is questionable. A little bit of primer. I might even throw some black paint at it and see what it looks like. And maybe I'll get used to it. I am going to do something about the mounting points to the frame because I just think it doesn't quite work for me. What am I going to do? I don't know. I'll think about it. I'll show you when I've done it though. In the meantime, hope you got something out of it. Hey, click the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber. Send me a message, say g'day, tell me where you are. It's all good. Have a good one. Cheers. A little bit of bonus footage. Let me know if you actually see it. That'd be cool. There's my pen. There's the biro I pulled the insert out. There's the piece of olive wood. Look at the grain in it. Spectacular. And when you turn it on the lathe, you can smell olives. Amazing. Lovely little thing. Cost bugger all to make, and it's good fun. See ya.